how long have you been investigating paranormal stuff?
Since about the mid-90s.
And that's quite a bit of time. Over that period, have you seen anything that's changed in the methods or the techniques used from the 90s to now?
I've seen more technology coming out to be used, but of course a lot of that technology has come and gone.
Sure.
And for me also, with what I used to use, with what I now use, there's just, with all the frequencies and everything that are out there, there's a lot of stuff that I just don't use anymore, but there is more and more technology coming out.
Do you, so what did you use back in the 90s? What was the standard piece of equipment to use?
You know what? I just used the regular, just a video camera and a recorder. That's
Were you back on tape back then?
That's pretty much
tape recorders, or was it, did they have digital? I think it had digital.
No, you know what? When I was back then, it was more like the Sony night vision cameras. That's what we.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I use, and so obviously the voice and everything comes through that. So I used to have a recorder, but I don't know when the heck. All these years are kind of blocked together, so I'm not sure when I got everything, but I know back then I used the night vision camera.
Do you think you catch more stuff now with the technology the way it is? I mean, do you get more EVPs out of the equipment you're using now as opposed to then?
I think so, but only I think because of all the experiences that I've went through. So I do it a lot better.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the equipment, prior to then and now.
Sure.
It's more of my experiences of how to get to what we're looking for.
So you've grown in your approach and your methodology, and that's really what's helped you out more than the technology per se itself. And that actually makes sense. It's a bad carpenter who blames his tools. So that's really the same idea. Do you think that there's been a fallout since the 90s in the popularity of ghost hunting? I mean, one of the things we've seen, back when we filmed 14 Degrees, the original one, it was during the real push wave of ghosts, ghost hunting. Ghost hunters just came onto the scene. They were changing the landscape of paranormal research, and everybody wanted to be a ghost hunter. Do you think that it's fallen off since then as far as interest in paranormal, or do you think it's just as strong as it's ever been?
We're talking 10 years ago right now, since the 90s.
10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear.
Yeah, just in case. I think, I don't know, for some reason I think it was very popular. I think it's a little less popular maybe now. I'm not sure if it has to do with TV or what it is. I just think that there's so many groups that are out there. So many new groups that they don't really, not that they don't know what they're doing, but it's just a lot of new people that are out there and they think that they know what they're doing.
That's kind of what I've seen myself, that, I've seen there are some groups that have been around a long time, like South Jersey Ghost Research started in 1955 and they're still going strong, but they've had almost a complete change of staff. So it's always new investigators that are carrying it forward. People who've been in it for a lot of years, life takes over. You get families, you get things to do, and you get put away.
Right.
Do you see a lot of, when you're actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, in investigating, do you find it, what's the difference or the dynamic between having a film crew with you when you're out investigating as opposed to going out by yourself or with a team dedicated just for the paranormal research, not for showmaking? Is it easier when you're out with just a group, or do you find that?
Not with the team that I go out with, so not really with ghost hunters. In the beginning, it was a little different to me, just because I do have this camera in my face.
Sure.
Obviously, that I'm not used to.
Right.
And when we go out and we do our things, you try to stay with your partner and you try to do things a little bit slower, I guess I would say. But being with your own group, everybody can just do their own thing and scatter and just kind of get your own sense of the house. So there is a little difference. Sometimes you can walk away, but on TV you try to stay close, and you eventually get to where you want to be. but it takes a little bit longer there because you're trying to stay together and move together. You know, it was a little difficult.
It's difficult at first, yeah, to get used to it, right?
You know, yeah. And again, we do our own thing, so it's not like they say, okay, take a left, take a right. It's not that. It's
Them
you have to
following you.
follow us, and then we do, you know. And one of the things I had to get used to, walking in the door, I would always, okay, go ahead, and I would say, okay, you know,
you gotta
sure,
curb
go
your
ahead.
politeness,
And they're like,
right?
no,
Yeah.
they're like, no, you need to walk through.
After me.
We'll take care of it. Don't worry about the door, just walk through. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I know Steve had mentioned that one of the challenges for him with this was that with the time. So they would say, oh, you know, we still want to go in, for example, and investigate the basement. Oh, you need 15 minutes, right? He said, no, we need 5 hours, you know. And so the film crew is obvious, you know, there's a different world in research and film production when it deals with time. You know, film production is very right now, we want this, 10 minutes, we're done, we're out, and research takes a lot of time, especially this type of work. It's very tedious and it takes a long time to do it correctly.
Yeah, and also, you know, a lot of times when we do our home groups, it's, you know, the whole gang goes in there.
Right.
You know, and when we're filming, it's, okay, well, 2 people can go into the place.
Right.
And like, and nobody else, you know, the 2 people, the camera guy, you do it. So the rest of us will be hanging outside, you know, unless the place is huge, you can always, you know, go
Right.
into 2 separate places as long as there's no contamination or anything. Which that also takes a lot longer too, you know, and then we pair off to different pairs. You know, maybe Sam and I will get more of a response than than 2 guys.
Right.
You know, so I mean, you never know. So we go back and forth and change partners, which, you know, we try to do that with our home investigations, but I know that we usually don't. It's kind of like the gang goes in.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
so.
How long does it take to usually investigate a location for a television show? I mean, you're there longer than a night, right? I mean, is it?
We're, it's at least 2 nights per property that we're just, you know, but it's like a 12 to 14 hour,
Sure.
you know, day.
Right.
And then for a small, and then it'll go up from there. You know, I mean, it could be a week. It depends on how large the property is.
Right.
If we get a lot of activity, we'll just keep going back.
It's a long time investigating. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
keep going.
a lot of groups would love the opportunity to be able to spend a week at some of the places that Ghost Hunters is allowed to go, you know.
Right.
I mean, they get into a lot of places that other people would just laugh them, you know.
Right. No, it's very exciting. It's not like you just have, okay, you have a couple of hours to go in there and then that's it. I mean,
Right.
we have the run of the place and we can stay, you know, like I said, like a minimum of 2 days going all the way up depending on the size of the property.
Right.
And as you know, everything's not on cue. So one night they'll be okay, another night not. But, you know, if once we go up there, they start feeling more comfortable talking to you like, oh yeah, this person's come back a couple of times, so they might feel more comfortable.
Right.
You know, and then they finally come out, and then that's when we can.
Well, maybe
Grab
that's the
habits.
secret to their sauce, you know, that they have a little longevity in place, like the
Right.
people who live there or the people who work there. You know, repetition and you're dealing with research is always the best thing, you know.
Right.
What do you think, you know, what do you think the future holds for paranormal research? Do you think it's going to go more technological, or do you think it's going to go back bohemian style, where everybody's more about feelings and emotions, or waiting in rooms just, you know, with the straight senses instead of technology? Do you think it's going to stick with the technology as it goes forward?
I think more of technology, as long as we come up with something that's really true.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people that are sensitive, but there's also, you know, sometimes your feelings are wrong.
Right.
So me personally, I need technology. I can have that feeling of, you know, I feel a girl or a little boy or something, but I don't know what my feelings are real or not, if they're true. So I'm going to need this piece of equipment, the recorder or the camera or something,
Right.
just to say, okay, a little girl's voice picked up, so then, you know, I'm not going crazy,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
but a little girl, you know, picked up, or the camera caught an apparition of a girl, or whatever it is. I just think technology is.
So you need the validity,
Important.
something to
Yes.
back up your feelings,
Yes,
and you know,
absolutely.
corroboration. You know, that's another key
Absolutely.
element to good research and science. What do you have any particular? Well, actually, what was the first experience? What got you into this?
Actually, I had a lot of experiences growing up. Just certain things that I've seen, certain things that have happened with things moving on its own for no reason. Things like that. Shadows. But the main reason why I really got into trying to figure out what's going on was this house that I was living with my parents. One day it was perfectly fine. The next day I guess it was haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Awful feelings that you get, just like that evil feeling.
Oh,
You never wanted to go inside the house. I used to just stay outside in the driveway calling my mother, when are you coming home? Because I can't go in the house without you.
Yeah.
So one night, I say on the line, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah. We can edit it out. You can put a horn for everything. Make it sound like you're swearing. You okay?
And I'm really trying not to say that. So one time I was sleeping, and it was probably, I was just about to go to sleep.
Sure.
Yes, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden I was sleeping on my back, and I felt I felt the fingers, like if somebody grabbed my wrists and put them down, grabbed my ankles, put them down, and then the feeling of an actual hand going over my mouth and just pushing my head down. Yeah. And again, a lot of things were happening before this.
And how old are you again?
What was I? Early 20s? Trying to think. About early to mid 20s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So about 5 years ago.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was terrifying, right?
So, and again, there was other things that were happening in the house. With the doors are just flying open, things, coming out of the closets, whipping out of the closets.
Right.
We would see things, we would hear things, glassware being taken out of the cabinets and stuff like that.
Wow.
Just really weird things.
Right.
So anyway, that night I was being held down, and I just remember not being able to you can't get up, and
Right.
you can't yell, so I couldn't yell to my my parents in the other room or anything. And all of a sudden, this apparition just appeared and started walking towards me, and he looked like a doppelganger of my then boyfriend.
That's
he
creepy.
had the same type of clothing on and stuff.
So did you break up with the guy after this? And,
No, I ended up marrying him.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
That's marriage for you.
So we're divorced now. Maybe he was trying to tell me something.
Maybe, yeah.
So I just remember him coming closer, and then once he was coming closer, so I could still see what he was wearing.
Sure.
But he didn't have a face, so it was just a black face. And he came over, and so I'm laying down, and he just kind of leaned over to me, so his face was right here to me.
And you thought, this is the one. She's a weird one, right?
Yeah. He's cute.
Wow.
You're just my type.
Yeah.
You got my attention.
Yeah, he did.
So was that the thing that, what drove you into investigating? What brought you to that?
Well, just because I didn't, from that house being so just open and nice to the next day being so evil and horrible, and what are these things that are in my house now?
You wanted to understand.
Right, so I had him as my guy that was following me around, and then my mother had somebody else with a different description following her around in the house. So we both had our own.
Good thing. Different description. That
So-
was pretty weird.
Yeah. So
But-
she had hers and I had mine.
Right.
So I kind of just, what is going on? Why all of a sudden is this like that? And I mean, scared enough to not even want to go into the house. That's how awful they were making it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were investigating before it was even popular, really. I mean, before it really kind of hit the road in the early 2000s. So it was, It had to be a different world back then, before the wave of ghost hunters, right? I mean,
And
it was-
before internet.
And before internet, yeah. I still have dial-up discs from my, but, it's a long story. But yeah, it was before internet and everything. So it was a different world back then, I would imagine. I didn't start investigating until after the wave of things, and we had Google, and we had all kinds of stuff
Right.
that misleads you for the rest of your life. But
Right.
did you notice the wave of hit all of a sudden? How, hey, I was doing this before, it didn't seem like anybody was doing it, now everybody wants to do it. Did you notice that? And
Oh, huge.
yeah, I bet,
Huge.
huh?
There's also the, I know that there was, after the shows came out, obviously there's more and more.
Right.
But also back then, we didn't discuss it that much. So there could have been people out there, doing this, but nobody really talked
That's a
to each other
fascinating
about
thing
it.
to me because, I grew up in a place that had all this strange activity going on, and nobody in my family would talk about it, And that was before all, when I was a kid, we had In Search Of, Real People, That's Incredible,
Right.
those types of things. We didn't have any real television shows that were dedicated to that, and my family just would not discuss it. We had all this stuff going on, very freaky things, and nobody would say a word. And so I think that the transition seems to be that after all these shows came on television, then people's mouths started flapping, and everybody would talk about it.
Right.
Which was what created the magic of everybody around the world started to get in and do this stuff.
Yeah. And then everybody has a story.
Right.
And I get people talking to me all the time, like, do you really believe that? I don't really believe that, but they all have a story for me.
They all have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who, even if you're not really into it and you're talking about it, somebody comes out of the room with a story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of story. Do you think we're any closer now to finding conclusive evidence of ghosts being real as opposed to 10 years ago? Do you think we're any further along, or are we still chugging along in the same train? There's a lot of compelling stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's very strange things going on. But to make that definite connection between those two things, do you think we're any further along than we were before, or are we still...
I personally think yes, only because of everything that I've experienced.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. From a personal perspective, you believe we are.
Right.
Yeah.
I also do know that, the internet and the Photoshop and all these things that are, going crazy. So, from somebody else who's really not in the field, they don't know what to believe.
Sure.
If they haven't experienced it, they don't know. They don't, who do I believe? So many
Right.
videos and pictures are not real, so it's hard for them. But for me, and probably, I'm sure a lot of other investigators, we believe, we've seen it, we've talked to it, we've felt it, we've experienced so much, for so many years.
Well, any place there's information, there's going to be misinformation. And that's where the people are going to diverge and the fork in the road goes. And then you have two different factions of paranormal research, the ones that people have learned through bad places on the internet, and the other people who have been at it for a long time before that was even in play.
Right.
And, we have multiple ranges of, you could find a bunch of different people who investigate all different sorts of ways, and they come out with all different results.
Mm-hmm.
Who's right and who's wrong, I guess we're going to eventually find out, because, anything that's correct comes out in a pattern, over repetition, it'll keep coming up the same way.
Right.
So we'll find out eventually. Yeah. What do you recommend for people who want to get into this? What's the best thing that they could do for themselves to keep their heads, to be successful, I suppose, in this? What do you think is the best idea for them to do? Like, don't believe this, or believe this, or do this, or get one of these, or, talk to this person, read this book. Watch this show.
You can tell them. Right. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you see. Just if you think you want to go out and do this, you can start a group and have everybody be open. Be open. Everybody has their own way of thinking. Doing different techniques, and everybody has their own different techniques.
Right.
You just have to be open and listen to everybody else of what they think. Don't don't close anybody out. Just, you know, if you have a feeling, you can say it, and, you know, then the next person has, don't,
Open roots of communication.
yeah, I mean, don't close out
Don't be
anybody.
inhibited.
And just, you know, you can go by what your feelings are,
Sure.
but definitely scientifically use the equipment. You know, if you are using some of the machines that say words, don't assume that those words are really what they are.
Right, yeah.
Well, you know, that one word, 5 different people in a group, it could say 5 different things. Everybody, you know, so
Right.
don't just jump to conclusions about something.
Don't jump to conclusions is a very good statement. I think
Yes.
that's good for
Yeah.
anyone. Yeah, 'cause
Debunk, disprove, don't just assume every single knock is something.
Right.
You know,
Right.
go and look for it. Go look at the source. Go and,
Find the
and
answer,
figure it out. Don't,
and as we mentioned, you know, earlier on when we were talking to Steve, the best thing you could say is, "I don't know." If you don't know,
right.
you don't know. No one's gonna fault you for not knowing
Right.
the answer to a mysterious thing that's had people pondering since 5,000-6,000 years ago. You know, I mean, if you
Right.
don't know the answer to it, that's okay.
Right.
There's been an awful lot of people who haven't, so it's okay.
Right. And, you know, a lot of times you hear like they just come up with stories. And then the story will just wrap up and they have some crazy story, you know, and it might not
Oh,
even
yeah.
have anything to do with what
That's
they're
right.
doing, you know. And then if you're working with a client, you know, you have to be as honest as you can, you know, and you don't want that client to be even more upset because you
That's
just
right.
came up with this huge
Do you
story.
cover a lot of
that's
fraud
not true.
in the things you do?
With you mean the client's doings?
Well, yeah, even that. Yeah, clients are, yeah, you know, because I've been on places where the clients have set up the house to make it look like it's haunted, and it really wasn't.
I honestly haven't been on that many places that do that.
That's good.
You know, there's a lot of EMF issues,
Sure, yes,
You know, and-
that's like a
which is most.
it's like a virus almost. There's so many houses like
There's,
that.
right. You know, and a lot of times, as soon as we get rid of, you know, whatever's causing that, you know, it could be, you know, a cordless phone or, you know,
Alarm clock or radio,
Yeah.
television. Yeah.
you know, you could, the alarm
Yeah.
clock stuff. You know, I always tell people, get rid of it, see how you are for a week, you know, and then we'll see. And all of a
Right.
sudden, yeah.
Move
you
your
know,
bed,
so-
you know, or do
Yeah,
something
and,
right.
you know, and you do, most of the time that's what the issues are.
Right.
And you, with the clients, you kind of get both. Sometimes they're a little upset because they really wanted a spirit there.
That's my point. You know, a lot of
Right.
people want their house to be
Yes.
haunted, and they want somebody to sign off on it, so they can take the responsibility off themselves of saying it's haunted. They want somebody else to say it. Verification of it.
Yeah, I mean, some get really mad if
They
you
do.
say,
No matter how logical and calm you are, you know, and even leaving the possibility open that they may still be right, anything that goes against it, that's that confirmation bias that bites us all, really, at some point in our lives, you know.
You know, a lot of my homes, when I go to a home and I can actually help the client and help them be more comfortable in the home, you know, which I've done, you know, you do a lot with, so I can't really pinpoint one place, but
What's your
once
favorite experience?
Well, just what.
It would be the mix in that.
Well,
too,
you know,
wouldn't it?
I mean, with the homes, you're helping the client, you're helping everybody move on, whether the spirit or the client, you're helping them move on, and it just, you know, it makes you feel good. This is why you're doing it, you know, just to help everybody. But also, you know, I also love going to these big places that don't have to deal with clients, and I just go out and have fun and
Right.
go
Right.
hunting and you know, just really active places, and you know.
Right.
So there's two things to like about it.
Yeah,
multiple
I mean,
things.
the personal aspect of it,
Yep.
you know, just going out and having fun and doing the ghost hunting thing and,
Sure.
and getting whatever I can get, and also that satisfactory of helping the homeowners or, you know, the clients.
That was a theme of 14 Degrees Before, was that at the end everybody summed up and they all had the same thing to say, that the biggest joy they got out of it was helping people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Rick Bover, I think, mentioned that the best reason that he likes to do this is the first reason, which is that you're giving answers to people. That was his
You're
first
helping
reason.
them.
Right.
You're helping them understand what's going on.
Right. So they don't think they're nuts or crazy.
Right.
Or
And whether it's paranormal or not.
right.
It's just, no, this is, either it is paranormal, let's help everybody move on,
Right.
or it's not paranormal, you need to call an electrician, so that,
Right.
so it could be either things. And, but of course, I also love to jump in those cemeteries and, and do whatever I can to
Sure.
do,
Well, that's the adventure side, the safari side, You don't go out on safaris to help people. You go out there for the adventure and the fun, right? And then,
right.
not that you shoot anything other with a camera. So
Yeah,
shoot
right.
anything. But anyway, but helping people, helping people understand stuff. That's the teacher mentality,
Yeah.
That's why nurses become nurses, to educate their patients of their illnesses. Teachers want them to teach. It's that helping people sort out problems feels good,
Right.
And,
it also helps because nobody was there to help me.
Right.
So it's one of those, I need to learn as much as I can, so whenever this is happening to somebody else, I can teach them
You're
everything.
balancing
ahead of
out your
time.
psyche by doing something good for the in replacement for the stuff that you didn't get. That's fascinating. You have any more questions?
Oh, he's not asking any more questions.
He's not asking. That's enough out of you, Joe. Well, that's all I have. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nice to
Excellent.
meet you.
Very nice meeting you. Thank you.